Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Amy Hobbs. I'm the librarian here at Skyline. You guys don't know me already. So I want to talk to you guys today about an author that I read and I really like. Her name is Malinda Lo, and she's really active in the queer community, LGBTQ plus friendly community. She's done amazing things, so I really wanted to talk to you about some of the books that she has written. Okay. So I'm going to try to do this here, and then there's one part that I want to show you. So who is she? So there's this really cool thing I found where it'll teach you how to pronounce her name, and then she has a couple things on it that she talks about. So let me just open this up real quick. Make sure it's loud enough.
Hello, my name is Malinda Lo. This isn't the name I was born with, however, since I was born in China and originally had a Chinese name. As soon as I moved to the U.S., though, I learned that most Americans couldn't pronounce my Chinese name very well. So when I was 6 years old, I chose a new first name, Malinda. The most distinctive thing about my first name is that it's spelled with an A. That's M-A-L-I-N-D-A. And my last name is extremely simple, L-O for Lo.
Okay, so go back to this. All right. So Malinda Lo, she, her, hers, is a New York Times best-selling author of 7 novels, including A Scatter of Light. That was a really famous one. That's why it's mentioned here. Her novel Last Night at the Telegraph Club, this one right here, you can see those are all the awards that it won on the top of the book, on the book. It won the National Book Award, Stonewall Book Award, Asian Pacific American Award for Literature, a Prince Honor, an LA Times, blah, 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 all these awards, right? So her books have received 15 starred reviews and have been finalists for multiple awards, including the Andre Norton Award and the Lambda Literary Award. She's been honored by the Carnegie Corporation, which is a huge corporation coming out of New York, as a great immigrant. And this is all coming from www.malindalo.com. So that's her website where you can learn a lot of stuff, cool stuff about her. Okay, this is a picture of her and her wife. She's married to Amy Lovell. So not only, she's a member of the LGBTQ community also. Hey, Malinda here. So Malinda Lo, this is one of the things that I pulled from her. She said that she likes to write to put people like her at the center of her books, that it's really important for kids to be able to read books that represent people that look like them, that can see themselves in the books. So when she speaks to students, writers, educators, and readers of all ages, she hopes to leave them with a sense of possibility as well as community. I think that's really beautiful. The stories we tell can include all of us, and all of us are part of the community that can make that happen. Okay, so born in China, she came to the United States when she was 3 years old, like she was just saying in the name pronunciation, with a different name, chose her name. With Cindy Pond, who is another young adult author, she co-founded a website called Diversity in YA. YA is young adult books. And that's books like from 6th grade all the way up through senior year in high school. So YA can be a lot of different types of books. They promote YA books with character and authors of color, LGBTQ+, and people with disabilities. They also collect data on publications of these books and work to make the publishers accountable for equitable promotion of minorities. This is kind of huge. So she'll, like a publishing house, be able to say, like, you're only publishing this type of book. Why are you only publishing? And holding them accountable and saying, like, you need to promote different types of people. And they often publish their findings. So this is actually an excerpt from Christy Payne. She's the director of libraries at the Dalton School in New York and the instructor for one of my classes. This was on a slideshow that she showed us. So it started as a hashtag. So Malinda Lo and Ellen O, they're 2 authors. They started a hashtag, We Need Diverse Books, to bring awareness to the need for different types of books. So, oops, I spelled different wrong. So they represent many different types of people in the world, especially for young readers to see representation of themselves. Okay, so a couple of her books, and I'm going to be honest with you, I did not read all of these books. These are books that are, I pulled a couple to give you examples. I did read this one, so I'll talk to you a little bit more about this one. All right, so this one's called A Line in the Dark. So a queer romance, friendship rivalries, and ominous secrets twist together in Joe's latest tale, Lo's latest tale. Chinese-American Jess Wong has known her white best friend Angie Rainman since grade school. The problem is she's loved Angie for nearly as long, unrequited. When Angie begins dating Margot Adams, a wealthy white student at a nearby private school, Jess knows she should be happy that her friend is happy, but as jealousy and suspicion about Margot eat at her instead, her friendship with Angie begins to crack apart. Jess tries to throw herself into her comics art, but even there, themes of loyalty, love, and betrayal arise. As tensions reach their breaking point, a classmate and friend of Margot's is discovered murdered in the park, and the resulting upheaval and search for a killer sheds light on some harrowing truths about everyone. This is a review that I pulled from Kirkus Reviews, New York, just because I did not read the book myself. Okay, this is adaptation, and I feel sort of silly reading it all to you. Would somebody like to read it out loud? Anybody want to do it? Helen, come on. Now you don't want to read it out loud?
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I come up?
Yeah, go ahead. You want to hold this, Jeff? Okay.
So I read this entire thing?
This thing.
Like this paragraph?
How about just the first one, if that
Okay.
makes you uncomfortable to read all of them?
I can read all of it.
All right, whatever you want to do.
After multiple horrific plane crashes caused by bird strikes, all flights are grounded.
I actually just heard in the news yesterday that there were 2 planes that were taken down by bird strikes. That means like a bird goes into the engine and the plane goes down. So this is, this stuff happens.
Riots break out. Reese and David, traveling home after a disastrous debate tournament, are in a near fatal car accident near a mysterious government facility. The tension is relentless until the teens make it safely back to San Francisco, at which point romantic entanglements. Reese falls for Amber, but maybe she likes David too. Detract from the strange abilities Reese and David are developing and the conspiracies they begin to unravel, with lots of men in black after them. And then things get crazier.
Crazier from that.
Sounds good.
Oh, adaptation. All right, are you writing them down? You're interested? Let's write it down.
Look it up. Yeah.
Okay, so this is Ash. This is really cool because this story is based on a Cinderella tale. You know the story of Cinderella?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a reimagining of Cinderella. So exquisite and pristine, unfolding deliberately. Aisling, known as Ash, knows the fairy stories and lore told by her now dead mother, but she does not know if she believes them. When her father dies and her stepmother and stepsisters, there's Cinderella, move her away from the wood to the city, she finds herself returning to her mother's grave where she meets the fairy, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, Shidon? Siobhan?
Shidon.
Yeah.
Shidhan.
Ash, we should look that up. I apologize, I should have looked that one up. Ash barely notes her harsh treatment at the hands of her stepfamily as she both longs for and fears for her glimpses of Shidon. He longs for her too, in ways she is slow to understand. Ash also is slow to see Kaisa, the king's huntress, as the source of her own desire. When she does, Ash turns to Shidon to make it possible for her to spend time with Kaja, despite the price Ash knows she will have to pay. Okay, huntress. Do you have a volunteer to read that one? Different one?
I'll read it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Are you joining, Benjamin?
You want to do it?
You sure? Okay. Set in the same universe as, although many centuries earlier than Ash, 2 17-year-olds at the Academy of Sages find their destiny in each other. Tazian already has visions, which she cannot parse. Cade is at the school because her powerful father wished her there, but she is not magically gifted. Their lands suffer under a ever-ending winter, and people are starving. When the invitation from the fairy queen of the arrives, both Tazian and Cade travel there with their king's son. They hope that the Ji know why nature is out of joint. On their journey, the party is attacked, and Tazian's visions grow fiercer and less clear.
Cool. Okay, so this is written here, but this is the one that I actually read. That's this one here. If you want me to pass around, you can take a look at it, put your hands on it. So this is called Last Night at the Telegraph Club. So this is set in 1950s America. So in the 1950s, there was this big thing about communism. So communism was the government, you know how we always say like America's a free country? Communism was like the Russian government, so it was not free, right? So in 1950s, one of the worst things you could be was a communist. So Lily is a Chinese American immigrant. Her father came from, she was actually born in the United States, but her father is a Chinese immigrant, her mother is Chinese American. And there's rumblings and rumors that they think that, you know, that they might be, that her dad might be communist, and they're afraid of, because if you're a communist and an immigrant, you could be deported, which means you get sent back to China. So it's very like high stress. They're really worried about that. At the same time that this is happening, Lily is starting to sort of question some things about herself. She finds the picture of what they used to call at the time female impersonators. It's a woman that would dress up as a man, and she was starring at this club called the Telegraph Club at night. And she was fascinated by this picture and the way that it made her feel, and she started to question some things about herself. And then she finds a book at the pharmacy, sort of hidden in with the other books, and it was a love story between two women. And she was riveted by this book, and she would read it in secret in little parts and then hide the book and come back and try to find the book again. And really, you know, at the time in the 1950s, homosexual love or love between two women or two men was not something that people talked about. It wasn't something that was accepted, and so she was sort of confused about what she was feeling. So she actually meets a girl at school and realizes that this girl has actually been to the Telegraph Club with a friend of hers. So they become friends. They sneak out at night her parents are asleep, so they can go to the Telegraph Club and meet some people there, and this whole new world is opened up to Lily. And she falls in love with her friend, Kath is her friend's name. And the story is really, it's a discovery of herself as she's developing these feelings for Kath and moving forward in, you know, in a situation where there's the stress with her father and like communism, and then her own sexuality too. Okay, any questions about that one? No. All right, who took my clicker?
Oh.
You're still okay. All right, so this last one, and then there's actually her reading a portion of A Scatter of Light out loud to you guys, and then I'll show you. Here, actually, we'll go through it, and then I'll show you the last part so I don't forget. So on her website, the www.malindalo.com, you can actually read free short stories written by her for free. So it's something you might want to check out. It's something, you know, if you're interested in some of her stories. All right. So this is A Scatter of Light, and then we'll let her read the excerpt for it. So during the summer before college, Aria discovers her sexuality. It's 2013, and Aria West is in Woodacre, California, a small town in Marin County, staying with her widowed paternal grandmother, Joan, an artist who is white. Aria's opera singer mom is a Chinese immigrant. This wasn't the summer Aria had in mind. Her plans were derailed after a boy took topless photos of her at a party and posted them online. Instead of staying on Martha's Vineyard with her best friends, she's now under the care of her grandma. On her first day in town, Aria meets Steph Nichols, her grandma's gardener, a heavily tattooed, gender non-conforming singer-songwriter who reads white. From the Dyke March to the Queer Music Festival in Golden Gate Park, Aria explores the Bay Area queer scene along with Steph, Steph's girlfriend Lisa, and their friend Mel. A Scatter of Light. Okay. So now we're going to actually listen to Malinda Lo read an excerpt from A Scatter of Light. Malinda Lo.
Hi everyone, I am Malinda Lo, author of the novel A Scatter of Light. This is about 18-year-old Aria Tong West, who spends the summer between high school and college with her artist grandmother, Joan West, in Northern California. This is a book about self-discovery, coming of age, messy relationships, and art. I'm going to read to you from the first chapter, which is set in 2008. I started calling my grandmother by her first name when I was 13. It was the summer before Grandpa died, and Dad and I were spending the month of July with them in Woodacre, California. They owned a cedar-shingled cottage there where they'd go for weekends and vacations, and after Grandpa retired from Berkeley, they moved into it permanently. My grandmother was an artist who was known primarily for her paintings and photographs. She was always mentoring a few art students, and one of them had a show opening in San Francisco during our visit. My grandmother took me with her. The show was in Soma at a garage that specialized in hybrid and electric vehicles and doubled as an art gallery. A red plug-in Prius was elevated on a lift at the back of the garage, which had the cleanest polished concrete floors I had ever seen. I had expected to see paintings hanging on the walls, but this artist made wire sculptures. They hung from cables that stretched across the space, twirling slowly in the air like graceful dancers made of silver mesh. Other sculptures were installed on stands scattered across the floor. Most were abstract in form, but some resembled female bodies or animal-like shapes, arms and tails extended, or elongated heads that seemed to look at you even without eyes. I was the youngest person there. As soon as we arrived, my grandmother was pulled away by a stranger and then another one, and after a few minutes of awkwardly hovering a few feet away, I retreated to the rear of the garage by the Prius. Nearby, 2 couches were arranged around a sky blue shag rug, and I sat down by myself while more people came through the garage's huge open doors. I could see the traffic whooshing by on Mission Street in the dusk. As Saturday evening settled into Saturday night, growing shadows blurred the city's hard edges and turned them into soft focus suggestions. I had been to plenty of art galleries before, but not a Saturday night opening, and I dressed up for it in a teal and white sundress, along with a carefully applied coating of lip gloss. Sitting on that sofa, I felt grown up, almost. I lost track of my grandmother in the gathering crowd. It was mostly women, mostly casually dressed in jeans and tees or tank tops, sneakers or boots, along with a smattering of all-black ensembles. Many of them had bare arms covered with tattoos, flowers or pinup girls or intricate abstract designs. A couple of women, one with pink hair, sat across from me on the other couch and set down small paper plates of cheese and grapes while they toasted each other with clear plastic cups of white wine. I thought about making a plate of cheese for myself, but before I could get up, a black woman with very short hair sat down beside me. "This seat's not taken, is it?" she asked. "No," I said. "Thanks." She held a plate of cheese and grapes too, but instead of wine, she had a small bottle of Pellegrino. She twisted it open and took a sip. I could see the brown skin of her scalp where her hair was faded in on the sides. I didn't want to stare, so I lowered my gaze. She was wearing black jeans and black motorcycle boots. "Joan West is supposed to be here tonight," the woman said. "Have you heard of her?" I looked up. "Yeah, she's..." Her right eyebrow was pierced and her eyes were sapphire blue. The edges crinkled as she smiled at me, and suddenly I didn't want to admit that Joan West was my grandmother. It wasn't that I didn't want to be connected with her, but this woman was speaking to me as if I were an adult, like her. To be Joan West's granddaughter made me a child, which I didn't want to be. "She's great," I said. "I like her work." "Yeah? What's your favorite?" My grandmother's most recent paintings were quite different from her previous work, but I liked them. Long, golden sweeps of light across doorways and honeyed wooden floors. When I looked at them, I thought of her and Grandpa on their deck in Woodacre in the late afternoon, the smell of wild grasses in the sun. "I like her time series," I said. She nodded. "Very meditative. I really appreciate her photography, the shots of her children especially." I knew the ones she was talking about, the pictures of my dad and Aunt Tammy when they were kids in Colorado. "Yeah, I've seen those," I said. "People say they're not about her children, but about the way we think about childhood." The woman's smile broadened. You know a lot about Joan West's work. Are you a fan? I realized I'd put myself on a path toward directly lying about who I was, rather than simply skirting the truth with careful omissions. It was a little exciting. The woman's smile softened as she looked at me, as if she knew I wasn't telling the whole truth, but she wouldn't push me. It was as if we were co-conspirators, and the thought of conspiring with her sent a nervous thrill through me. I wondered who she was. Yes, I said. I'm a fan. She nodded as if she had expected me to say that. Joan's been a big influence on a lot of artists here in the Bay Area. She should be way more famous than she is. I felt shy as I asked, Are you an artist? I am, she said, as if it surprised her. What medium do you work in? I'd heard my grandmother pose this question to others before, and I thought it made me sound mature. The woman blinked, her smile disappearing for half a second before it returned. Metal and wire. Sculpture, mostly. Sarah, there you are. We both looked up as my grandmother came toward us. She was wearing a purple and gold patterned blouse that draped around her in some complicated way that created wings when she opened her arms for a hug. The woman sitting next to me rose to her feet and embraced her. Thank you so much for coming, she said. Of course I came. I'm so happy for you. My grandmother saw me watching and said, I see you've met. Hi, Joan, I said quickly, standing up and smoothing down my dress. I flushed as my grandmother gave me a funny look. The woman grinned. Yes, I think I've met one of your biggest fans, she said. My grandmother looked a little puzzled. Aria, this is Sarah Franco. She's the artist featured here tonight. Metal and wire, she had said. I was embarrassed that I hadn't put that together. Sarah extended her hand to me. Hello, Aria. Nice to meet you, officially. Likewise, I said. Her palm was rough, her fingers a little scratchy. I wondered whether my grandmother was going to explain who I was. We didn't look related because she was white and I'm half Asian, although there was something similar about the shapes of our faces. I'd better go get ready, Sarah said. I have to make a speech. My grandmother squeezed her shoulder. I'm looking forward to it. And congratulations. Thanks. Nice talking to you, Aria, Sarah said. And then she headed off toward the front of the garage. My grandmother looked at me with an amused smile. Shall we go up front and get a good spot? I want to be sure to see everything. She put her arm around my shoulders, and I knew she didn't mind that I had called her Joan, and maybe she even thought it was funny. During Sarah's speech, she thanked my grandmother for mentoring her over the past 5 years, for pushing her to go beyond her comfort zone. The audience applauded when Sarah pointed out my grandmother standing beside me, and when she stepped forward to acknowledge their applause with a smile and a wave, she looked so beautiful and wise. I felt a keen sense of pride to be related to her, to Joan West. She was my grandmother, yes, but she was more than that, and it seemed inadequate to call her by a name that said nothing about her accomplishments.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there just for the sake of time. I know you guys came to visit me from another room. Okay, so the very last screen was the screen that I ended on before. So that's www.malindalo.com, where you can read some free short stories that she wrote. Anybody have any comments about her? You think you'll read her? Interesting.
I think I'll definitely read some of them. They
Yeah,
sound great.
this was a great book, and the Ash one is after it's like, I think when you go back.
Oh yeah, that sounds like books you would really like.
Yeah,
They're right up your alley.
because it's a little bit of fantasy with the right.
Books I would like.
Yeah.
We should have read that one book.
Yeah, that one you're gonna be looking at.
Right,
No, we
Huntress.
should have read
This
that
one.
before sci-fi.
Huntress and Ash are a
Okay,
little
yeah.
connected. This is actually earlier than Ash, so like a prequel to the other. So those two. Okay. Any questions? Thank you guys for coming. Yay!
Oh,
You'll check her out. Yes.
Do you have any Malinda Lo books here at the library?
I don't have any here at this library just because it's 6 through 8 and some of them are a little bit higher, but I can look into getting some of them here if that's what you would like. Yeah. I put in an order in February for books and they still haven't arrived, so it does take a little bit of time.